Have you ever wondered why there are people who fall in love with you to the point of obsession, even though they don't truly know who you are? It's not because you're too beautiful. It's not because you're too interesting. It's not because you're a rare, special being in this world. Even though all of that might be true, it's still not the deepest reason. What makes them fall in love with you doesn't lie in who you are. It lies in the image they see in you. That image is not you. It is a part of them, a part that was forgotten, buried, or long suppressed. And then, when you appear, that part suddenly comes alive, and they fall in love with you. But what no one tells you is this: the first love doesn't stem from understanding. It stems from absence. No one truly loves you at first sight. They love the feeling you bring. They love the parts of themselves they once forgot and now see reflected in your eyes. Carl Jung called this phenomenon projection, unconscious projection, meaning we don't see others as they are. We see them as a mirror, reflecting the things we don't dare look at within ourselves. And if that mirror reflects the beautiful, potential, alluring part we've lost, we feel love. Not because they are that lovable, but because they bring us closer to ourselves, closer to that deeper, truer, more original part of us, the part that society, trauma, and growing up forced us to bury. So, you're not being loved the way you think. You are being loved as a symbol, a character, a metaphor, a dream. And that dream might be too beautiful to let go, but also too fragile to last. How many times have you met someone who made you feel like you've known them forever? No time needed, no reason required, just a glance, a smile, a way they passed through your life, and suddenly everything inside you shifted. You think it's destiny, fate, a soul reunion from a past life. But Jung would whisper a more honest truth into your ear. It's not that you're meeting someone again. You're meeting a part of yourself again, a part you once rejected, a part you buried deep because it wasn't allowed to live. An introverted person might fall head over heels for someone impulsive, free, fiery, not because the other is better, but because that very trait lies dormant, dying inside the first, and is desperate to come alive again. Someone used to overextending themselves for love might be captivated by someone indifferent, distant, and cold, not because they like being hurt, but because they are drawn to a way of existing they've never allowed themselves to embody, being emotionally irresponsible. Love isn't understanding. Love is resonance, like two strings vibrating at the same frequency. Even if they look different, sound different, serve different purposes. And sadly, that kind of love doesn't truly see who you are. It only sees what they want you to become. You become the stage where someone else's psyche performs. You become the blank screen on which they project their memories, dreams, and unhealed obsessions. And they don't love you. They love the image of themselves reflected in you. This truth may hurt you, but it can also set you free. You don't need to try to become someone to deserve their love, because you were never the person they truly saw. You also don't need to fall apart when they leave, because they never held the deepest part of you. They only held the illusion. And likewise, when you fall deeply in love with someone, maybe you're not really seeing them either. Maybe you're just seeing yourself in them. A person who makes you feel alive, free to cry, free to be loud, free to be vulnerable. You don't love them. You love the feeling you have when you're near them, a feeling you haven't been able to access when you're alone with yourself. And that is a tragedy, but also an opportunity. Because if you dare to look deeper, if you dare to cross the line between love and projection, you'll discover something even greater. Love is not meant to fill. Love is a wake-up call. No one is born to complete you. They are born to remind you. You were once whole, once beautiful, once vibrant, until you forgot who you are. True love doesn't lie in finding the right person. It lies in having the courage to face yourself when you meet them. They don't love you. They love the part of themselves they lost. And you, in that moment, became the one who reminded them of it. They are drawn to you, but not because you are enough, because you are a symbol of what they lack, a kind of invisible psychological magnet where you become the embodiment of a part they can't access within themselves. An introvert may love you because you are vibrant, bold, and unafraid to say what they only dare to think. A rational person may love you because you are emotional, intuitive, tender, as if you live in a world they've always watched from afar but never stepped into. A control freak may love you because you don't try to control anything at all. It's not because you're better than them. It's not because you're perfect, but because you're a symbol, a mirror reflecting the part of their soul that has been locked away. They don't love you for what you try to show. They love the energy you awaken in them, a part that's been lost, and now can only come back to life through your presence. Carl Jung once wrote, "We are always drawn to the part that has been buried within ourselves. No one loves you from fullness. They love you from emptiness. And when that emptiness resonates because of you, they think they found love. But in truth, what they've found is themselves through you. And you become the key. No need to know. No need to understand. No need to explain. You just walk in and they vibrate. You awaken in them a feeling they cannot name, a kind of vague remembrance, not of the past, but of the buried self. You remind them of an emotion that was once natural, once present, but has been worn down by society, by pain, and by education. And in that moment, you become someone special in their eyes. But what happens if they never realize that they can cultivate that missing part within themselves? They will cling to you. They will need you, not as a person, but as a dose of medicine, as an external miracle that helps them revive the part inside them that is slowly fading. And they will begin to idealize you, put you on a pedestal, call you an inspiration, a light, an angel. They will exalt you, not because you are truly magnificent, but because they never dared to believe that the beautiful part could be revived from within themselves. They will see you as the only flame that can warm the frozen part inside them. And when you no longer maintain that perfect image, when you appear tired, confused, lost, when you become human, they will begin to feel that you've changed. It's not you who changed. It's their illusion that cracked. Because the love was not built on truth. It was built on a lack. And you were the temporary shadow filling it. And then they withdraw, coldly, in a way that is hard to understand, in a way you cannot explain. They say you are no longer like before. But the truth is, what they thought you were never truly existed. You were a symbol, a living symbol, and symbols, over time, cannot sustain the illusion forever. But don't be too quick to blame them. Who among us has never loved like that? Who hasn't ever looked into someone's eyes and seen a dream? Who hasn't thought, I need this person to feel whole? We too once loved like that. Not loving the person, but loving the feeling they awakened in us. The person who made you feel alive. The one who made you laugh for no reason. The one who made you breathe deeper, be more of yourself, dare to dream more. And you thought you loved them. But maybe you only loved a version of yourself you hadn't lived for a long time. And they, just like you, became a symbol. Jung called this the natural stage of love, the idealization phase, where the unconscious seeks to revive itself through another person. We don't love from awareness. We have a healing instinct. We don't seek someone to understand. We seek someone to awaken us. That person could be an artist, because you once longed to create. It could be someone free, because you once felt caged. It could be someone rational, because you once drowned in emotions. It could be someone gentle, because you once forced yourself to be strong. And when we meet them, our soul says, there's the missing piece. And we fall in love. So what is love, if not the urge to become whole? Love does not arise from, I am enough and I want to share. It arises from, I see in you something I have never allowed myself to live. You become a symbol, a living map, a signal, an unconscious projection. No one says this when they love you, but their soul knows. They are drawn to you, not because of who you are, but because you activate a sleeping part of their psyche. You remind them of something they forgot, that they once were like that, and now they want to live again through you. But what happens when they begin to realize that you cannot fill that missing part forever? What happens when they realize your freedom cannot be transferred to them endlessly? Your gentleness cannot soothe their core wounds. Your radiance cannot save the darkness they refuse to face. They will be disappointed. And if they are not awake, they will blame you. Blame you for not being who you were. Blame you for changing. Blame you for not fulfilling the emotional need they once believed you could. And then, love collapses. Not because you're no longer lovable, but because your symbolic role has come to an end. But if they are awake, if they are brave enough to look within and say, what I admire in you is also what I long to develop within myself. I love you. But what I truly need is not you. It's the aliveness within me that you helped awaken. Thank you for reminding me that in that moment, you are no longer a symbol. You become a witness to another's awakening. And love, from that point, is no longer a hunger for possession, but a journey of companionship. No longer, I need you to live, but I live, and I want to share that with you. And that is when true love begins. People don't always love you for who you are. Sometimes, they love you because you match an invisible image they've carried within them for a long time, an image they've held in their soul since before they even knew who they were. A symbol, an archetype, an ancient sketch etched into the unconscious. Carl Jung called it anima and animus, the archetypal images of the feminine in men and the masculine in women. Not gender, not behavior, but energy, collective memory, a sacred vision formed from early memories, culture, myth, poetry, maternal and paternal love. Things the mind doesn't record, but the soul still carries. Anima, the inner muse within a man, the shadow of the mother, the sister, the first love, the emotions he once rejected, the softness, intuition, receptivity, and dreaminess he once hid behind the armor of logic. Animus, the vital force within a woman, the image of the father, the teacher, the elder brother, the assertive voice she was once taught to silence, the reason, strength, clarity, and decisiveness that she once feared within herself. These images are not something you can dismiss. They are there, in the shadow of the soul, in how you choose lovers, in how you idealize, in the unexplainable stirrings within you. And then one day, you walk into someone's life. You don't know why they look at you as if they've known you for lifetimes. You don't know why they're drawn to you, as if you've opened an old door long locked away. They say there's something familiar in you. They can't explain it. They only know when you are present, something deep inside them comes back to life. Not because you're too different, but because you resemble an image within them, an image they can't name, an image that existed long before you arrived. You match with the image they once drew, maybe not in facial features, not in actions, but in unconscious waves. You match a feeling they once longed for, a memory never lived, but always present. And from that moment on, you are no longer just yourself. You become an image. Become the chosen one. Become destiny. They love you, not with awareness, but through the resonance between the image inside them and the image you awaken. There is a kind of love that is very strange. When you meet someone, your soul seems to have been waiting for them for a very long time. A glance, a gesture, a certain tone in their voice, a way they stand in the sunlight. Something touches the depths of the unconscious, and you find yourself no longer in control. That's when anima animus begins to operate. Not because they're particularly special, but because they resemble a symbol your soul has been carrying. They are the goddess, the hero, the prince, the muse, the savior, the one who will awaken the part of you that has died. But no one tells you this. You're not in love with that person. You're in love with the image they evoke within you. And that is the beginning of the tragedy. The image itself is not to blame. But if you don't realize it's an image, you'll begin to expect the other person to live up to the symbol you've assigned them. You want the muse to always be gentle. You want the man to always be strong. You want the girl to always be sensitive. You want the guy to always be mysterious. You want them to hold the exact role you once dreamed of. And you forget. They're just a human being too. When they begin to show their weariness, you feel disconnected. When they're no longer like before, you feel disappointed. When they become angry, vulnerable, confused, you feel disillusioned. You think love has ended, but in truth, the projection has shattered. You no longer see them as a symbol. You see them as a person, and that is where idealized love collapses. You see their messiness, their contradictions, their imperfections. They are no longer divine as you believed, and that makes you pull away, not because you no longer love them, but because you never truly saw who they were. You saw the anima, you saw the animus, you saw the soul image you were longing for, but you never truly saw them. And the reverse is also true. When others love you because you resemble an image in their minds, they don't ask if you like silence. They just see you as mysterious. They don't know you're often anxious. They just see you as deep. They don't understand the loneliness you carry. They just see presence. They don't love you. They love the image of the goddess, the maiden, the mother, the savior, the guide, that their unconscious is seeking. You become the vessel for the dream they don't dare live. And when you can no longer maintain that image, they become disappointed. Not because you did anything wrong, but because the image no longer matches, and they withdraw. No one is at fault, but neither truly sees the other. Jung said, "There is no true love while projection remains." True love only begins when the image collapses. When you dare to see the other, not through the lens of expectation, ideals, or archetypes. When you accept them in their contradictions, in their wounds, in their darkness, just as you are. When you love them, not because they are like the dream, but because they are real enough not to be a fantasy. And likewise for you. You are only truly loved when someone stops seeing you as a symbol. When they see both the beautiful and the chaotic in you. When you no longer have to perform and are still allowed to stay. And that only happens when the anima, animus, is recognized, embraced, and integrated within the other person. No longer needing you to play a role. No longer needing you to rescue. No longer needing you to reflect their soul image, because they have begun the journey back to themselves. At that point, you are no longer a character in their fairy tale. You are a real person. And if they still stay, that is love. You think you're being loved for who you are, but one day, everything collapses. They leave, quietly or chaotically, and you sit there, not understanding what just happened. You think you did something wrong. You ask yourself why they changed. You search through every memory, every word, every glance to find an explanation. But no one ever told you this painful truth. They never truly saw you. They saw an image, a version, an illusion they created from what you awakened in them. They loved you with the eyes of the unconscious, not with the heart of presence. From the very first moment, you were placed on a high pedestal, not to be cherished, but to be given meaning. Everything you did, said, expressed, was read through the lens of the image they already carried in their minds. You became the muse they dreamed of through their youth, became the savior who would heal their old wounds, became the gentle mother they never had, became the steadfast father they always lacked, became the innocent child they once lost, became anyone, anything, as long as it made them feel alive. But in all those scripts, where were you? You were erased from the leading role in your own life, turned into a screen upon which they projected their unhealed psyche, and they called that love. They loved the light you radiated, but couldn't bear to see the darkness you carried. They loved your patience, your listening, your support, but withdrew when you collapsed. They loved the depth in your eyes, but got lost when you became angry or silent. Because from the very start, they didn't love you. They loved the character they wrote and cast upon you. And then, when your true self began to emerge, with all your contradictions, wounds, limits, and needs, they didn't know what to do with that. You became unfamiliar, no longer aligned with the original image, no longer matching the story in their mind. You can see it in the dimming of their eyes, in the growing distance, in the coldness that has no explanation, in the disappointed accusations. You've changed. You're not the same person anymore. You didn't change. You just began to appear. Love based on projection always ends in disillusionment, because no one can live forever as a symbol in someone else's mind. No matter how hard you try, there will come a day when you say the wrong thing, make a mistake, run out of energy, and the image collapses. And that collapse doesn't only hurt them, it causes you to lose yourself. You begin to doubt, should I go back to who I was? Am I not good enough? Am I asking for too much? You withdraw your emotions, you reduce your needs, you restrain yourself, you replay the old role, you try to keep everything like it was, even though inside you are falling apart. You think that if you're quiet enough, sweet enough, gentle enough, strong enough, they'll stay. But here's what you need to know. If they can't love you in truth, they never really loved you. You deserve to be seen, not as a symbol, not as a role, not as a solution for someone's loneliness, but as a human being, full of contradictions, full of emotions, sometimes lost, sometimes strong, sometimes fragile, sometimes unsure of who you are. You deserve to be loved not because you resemble someone's dream, but because you are living truthfully in your own skin. You are not eternal light. You are also darkness, also fear, also emptiness. Also, the part is not yet healed. And you don't need to hide those to remain in someone's heart. You only need someone deep enough not to run when they see your shadow. Someone brave enough to love you truly, not just the dream of you. And the paradox is, if you continue staying in relationships where you are not truly seen, you will lose the ability to see yourself. You will believe you have to be better to be worthy, that you have to be stronger to be loved. You must maintain the initial image forever to avoid being left. You'll forget that love is not about keeping a role, but about daring to let someone see you and still stay. And if they leave once they see your truth, let them go. Because in the moment you're rejected for being real, you are returned to yourself. You don't need to be instantly understood, but you deserve to be fully present. You don't need to make someone feel whole, but you deserve to be chosen, not for the role you play, but for the life you carry. Look back at the relationships that have passed, the times you were left behind, even though you did everything right. The people who once said, "I can't live without you," and then vanished when you expressed your real feelings. The ones who once called you their light, but disappeared when you needed them most. Do you understand? They never truly saw you. They saw the image they needed. They saw the role you played. They saw the hope they projected onto you. But when your imperfect side emerged, they couldn't face it. Not because you were too much, but because they weren't deep enough to love. Jung said, "Only when you stop projecting can you truly love." And only when you refuse to be someone else's symbol do you open the door to being loved as you are. Don't be afraid when someone leaves, because your truth shows. Don't lock yourself up just to preserve an image. If someone cannot stay when you are weak, broken, messy, they were never worthy of the beauty you once gave. And if someone sees you as a symbol, a savior, the light of their life, gently step back. They are not wrong. But if you let them continue, you'll lose yourself in someone else's dream. You were not born to be someone's ideal. You were born to be yourself. And if real love comes, it will come from someone who stays when the mask falls. Someone who doesn't need you to be amazing, just real. And you are worthy of being seen, of being known, of being loved, not as a symbol, but as a soul learning how to return to itself. When someone loves you and then leaves, when a relationship that touched the depths of your heart breaks down halfway, when something once sacred turns out to be just a dream, you think you failed. You believe broken love is proof of a mistake. You search for flaws in yourself, in them, in destiny, anywhere you can attach a reason. But Carl Jung didn't see love as a competition. He didn't see the breakdown as an ending. He saw love as a ritual of soul transformation. And every time your heart breaks, a doorway opens. We don't come to love to live happily ever after. We come to be stripped bare, to see ourselves more clearly, to taste the parts that reason cannot understand. We come not to have someone, but to see who we've never dared to be. To love is to step into a mirror, to see yourself in the other, and vice versa. To awaken the parts that have long slept. To let wounds once hidden come to light. To remove unconscious masks, not through logic, but through collision, longing, desire, and heartbreak. Because the people we once loved are sacred mirrors. Some reflect our light, aliveness, openness, trust, laughter, eyes that speak. Some reflect our shadow, control, fear of abandonment, emotional hunger, the things we tried to hide. Jung called this process individuation, the journey to becoming a whole self. And love, to him, is the most powerful catalyst for that journey. Not every person we love is our destiny, but every person we love carries a piece of the lesson our soul needs to complete. The one you love so fiercely may not come to stay. They come to touch the unhealed part, awaken a buried memory, open a door you never dared step through. They come as a wake-up call, a tremor of the unconscious, forcing you to face what you once ran from. They do not come to make you happy. They come to make you awake. So when someone loves you and leaves, don't be quick to call it failure. Ask instead, what part of myself did I just get to see through this person? Maybe you just saw that you always have to try harder to feel worthy of love. Maybe you just saw that your fear of abandonment makes you lose your voice. Maybe you just saw that you place someone on a pedestal simply because they awakened a familiar feeling you never named. Maybe you just saw the inner child that was never embraced, now clinging to love as if it were the last breath of life. And you are not wrong. not weak, not inadequate. You are simply remembering who you are, because true love, whether it lasts or breaks, always does one thing. It brings you closer to your authentic self. Those who made you cry the most might be the ones who pulled you out of your thickest shell. The relationships that seemed unnecessary might be the soul's turning points. The ones who broke you might also be the ones who opened the path for your self-healing. No one is a mistake if you know how to learn from them. Jung did not romanticize pain. He didn't say every love is beautiful, but he believed no love is meaningless if you know how to observe the unconscious. Do you love someone? Why them? What part of them awakened something in you? Were you drawn to them because they resembled someone? Because they made you feel something? Because they reminded you of something you had once lost? These are not easy questions. But if you dare to walk through them, you will discover every love is a map leading you back to yourself. There is no wrong love, only love not yet understood. No heartbreak is meaningless, only lessons not yet decoded. And then one day, you will look back on your past loves without blame. You will see who you were when you loved them. You will see how you grew after each time your heart shattered. You will see you once loved out of longing, out of lack, out of unnamed darkness. And you will see, little by little, that love helped you walk closer to wholeness. You begin to love not to be filled, but to be reflected, not to be saved, but to be seen, not to belong to someone, but to return to yourself. Jung believed true love does not arise from perfection, but from two people seeing each other without projection. Love does not begin with, "You are my dream," but with, "I see you, your light and your shadow, your joy and your pain, what's beautiful and what you try to hide, and I still choose to stay. And you too." You begin to love not from craving, but from awareness. You don't need the other person to be anyone, just to be themselves. You don't need them to heal you, only not to block your healing process. This is the love that comes after. The love that comes after all projections have shattered. Love that does not come from lack, but from true presence. So if you're hurting right now because someone didn't stay, know that you are not failing. You are growing. You just walked through a doorway of the soul, of the unconscious, of layers the ego could never touch unless someone came, loved you, and then broke you open. Be thankful for them, not because they were right, but because, even for a moment, they made you see yourself more clearly. And when you're brave enough not to call love a failure, when you start seeing pain as the raw material of awakening, when you can embrace every memory, beautiful, sad, unfinished, as part of the soul's maturing process, then you've entered a different phase. The phase where love is no longer something you seek, but something you become. There was a time when you loved like someone starving, loved as if someone else were the only cure for the emptiness within you. Loved to be saved, to be seen, to be filled. But eventually, after enough heartbreak, after enough broken illusions, after all the images you projected have shattered before your eyes, You stop, not because you're tired, but because you've begun to awaken. And from that moment, real love begins. Jung said, "Love is not real when it is still ruled by the unconscious." Because when we love without awareness, we're not loving the real person. We're loving the image we created from our inner emptiness. We love to be reflected, to reclaim what we lost, to go back to childhood, where we were not held, not seen, not allowed to be ourselves. And in that lack, we cast the other as mother, father, savior, healer, idol, victim. But what is awakening? Awakening is when you begin to realize this. When you start seeing the unconscious scripts being repeated. When you pause in the midst of intense emotion and ask, am I really seeing them? Or am I seeing them through my fear of abandonment? When you're calm enough to distinguish between attraction and activation, between love and dependence, between real connection and an unawakened dream. When you're awake, you no longer look for someone to complete you. You no longer enter relationships to be made whole. You enter because you know who you are, and from that place of wholeness, you share, not cling. You show up, not perform. You listen, not react from old wounds. You choose to love, not need to love. Conscious love doesn't come from need. It comes from awareness. You are aware of what you feel and why. You are aware of who the other person is, and you don't try to change them. You are aware of the parts within you that once terrified you, and now you hold them. You are aware of the differences and no longer see them as threats. You don't need someone to be just like you. You just need them to be real. And you, the same. Conscious love begins when you turn inward, not to withdraw from the world, but to meet the part of you once forgotten. You begin to speak with yourself, with the inner child who was once abandoned, with the feminine part once silenced, with the masculine part once restrained, with the archetypes that once manipulated your romantic choices. And little by little, you bring those parts home, no longer rejecting, no longer denying, no longer labeling who's right or wrong. Only truth, only presence. You're no longer afraid of a relationship ending, because you know no one can truly leave you if you no longer abandon yourself. You no longer need someone to make you feel worthy, because you now live as if you are worthy, regardless of anyone's recognition. You no longer build your identity on who chooses you, who rejects you, or who stays or leaves, because you have a foundation inside, a place you once searched for in others, and now have found within yourself. That is freedom. Not the freedom to leave, but the freedom to love without needing to possess. The freedom to be present without performing. The freedom to not be chosen, and still not lose yourself. The freedom to give, not to trade, but because you cannot help but love. And when you begin to live this way, love changes. It is no longer an addiction, no longer hungry, no longer a wound trying to be patched. but a current, quiet, vast, true. No need for noise, no need to prove, no need to win. You begin to see others with the eyes of kindness instead of expectation. You begin to listen with the heart of presence instead of defense. You begin to forgive, not because they deserve it, but because you no longer want to carry the old story. True love is when there's no more story, no more scripts, no more roles. Only you as you are, and the other as they are. And if between those two truths there is resonance, that is a gift, not something to be expected, not an obligation, but a sacred choice made anew each day. Conscious love is when you are no longer ruled by the fear of loss, because you know, if love is truly real, it cannot be lost. It only changes form. It only matures. It only evolves. You may no longer be together, but love remains, like a flame that once warmed you through your darkest winter. You don't need to hold on to someone to prove love. You only need to know you loved with all the truth you had. And sometimes, true love does not end with staying. It ends with a deep clarity that both have helped each other see the sleeping parts of the soul more clearly. Through meeting each other, both moved closer to the light within. That no one came to save the other, but each came to awaken what had long been silent. That is love no longer based on blindness. That is love that has passed through disintegration and still remains. That is love no longer defined by outcome, but by the profound presence of two souls who know who they are. And perhaps you will come to realize this. The most beautiful love is not the one that makes you happy all the time, but the one that makes you become your truest self with nothing left to hide. Love doesn't come to heal you. It comes to show you. You have always had the capacity to heal yourself, and you deserve to be loved, not when you are perfect, but when you dare to show up with all your imperfections. When you begin to love this way, the one you choose changes too. No longer someone like a dream, but someone you can sit in silence with, cry with, face the darkness with, and not leave each other. Someone who doesn't make you less of yourself, but helps you be more of yourself. And that love, quiet, unhurried, unprojected, will stay. Not because you need each other, but because you see each other. Real, enough, and free. You have gone far. You have loved, cried, been caught in spirals you thought you'd never escape. You once believed someone was your destiny, and then woke up in the middle of the night, realizing it was just a veil of projection. You once held hands, made promises, then watched that hand disappear into an unspeakable distance. But perhaps the important thing is not who you have loved, but who you've become after all those loves. Because love, in truth, has never been about finding another. It has always been a journey of returning to yourself. When you live in lack, you seek someone to fill it. You'll fall for those who make you feel confident, seen, chosen, and special. But the more you love from lack, the more you are abandoned, not by others, but by the very image you once clung to. People cannot forever play the role of your father, mother, savior, or the only light in your darkness. They cannot do that, and you should not love them for that. Carl Jung once said, "Meeting yourself is the most sacred journey a human can take." And love, if it doesn't lead you back to yourself, is just intoxication, not awakening. You think you are looking for a person, but really, you are searching for a part of yourself, a part long frozen, a part once wounded and left behind, a part rejected by parents, by society, by dogma, or even by yourself, and you hope someone will bring that part back, alive, gentle, loved, and sometimes they really do, but only for a moment, like lightning in the night, like rain brushing through a desert. Then they vanish, because their role ends there. They cannot carry that part for you if you don't claim it yourself. The one who made you feel lovable cannot forever be the source of your worth. The one who made you feel alive cannot always be the reason you wake up. The one who made you believe you were enough cannot be your measure of wholeness. You must become that for yourself. Otherwise, you will forever love to demand and never love to give. We do not just love others. We love the version of ourselves they help us see. Someone opens your heart, not because they're extraordinary, but because they happen to touch the part of you that always longed to be lived. Someone makes you cry, not because they are cruel, but because they shattered the mask you've worn too long. Someone becomes unforgettable, not because they are your destiny, but because they awakened an unwritten chapter in you. And when they leave, you think that chapter died. But no, it has only just begun. And now, you must be the one to hold the pen, not to keep writing their story, but to continue writing the story of becoming yourself. Love is no longer about finding the right person, but living so truthfully in your own being that the right person cannot help but recognize you. And if they don't, it's okay, because love is no longer someone else's choice. Love is your choice, for yourself. When you walk without needing to be desired, when you are quiet yet full of life, when you are alone yet not lonely, when you can sit with your pain without blaming anyone, when you don't need anyone to validate what you feel, when you no longer live to be chosen, but live to choose yourself every day. That is when love begins to find you, not from the outside, but from within. True love doesn't begin when you meet the right person. It begins when you no longer abandon yourself. You begin to listen to the voice inside rather than the noise outside. You begin to live from intuition, not from fear. You no longer rush to say, "I love you," to someone new. You pause, look deeply, listen. You no longer cast them into roles. No longer demand they be your light, your shadow, your unfinished dream. You let them be them. Let yourself be you. And if love is born between those two truths, then it is born of awareness, not reaction. You don't need a perfect love. You need a real love, So real that you don't need to act, don't need to avoid, don't need to bargain with fear for acceptance. So real that you can say, "This is me," and they still look at you. Without idealizing, without judging, just present. And if no one can do that, it's okay. Because you have done that for yourself. Love is the path inward, not the place where you find someone to stay, but the place where you find the part of your soul you once abandoned. And when that part is welcomed, loved, accepted, integrated, you no longer need love. You become love. No one left to blame. No wounds left to hide. No fears left to soothe. Only a heart. Alive, open, whole, and free. Maybe you'll fall in love again. Maybe you'll spend a lifetime with someone. Maybe you'll remain alone. None of that matters. Because the question is no longer, will I be loved? But, am I living true to myself? Love is a journey, not to find the other, but to reclaim the part of yourself you forgot. And if a love walks with you on that path, that is a blessing. But if not, you are still enough. You are the sacred temple you once searched for in others. You are the love you once waited to hear from someone's lips. You are the flame you thought only someone else could light for you. And now, you have awakened. No more demands. No more waiting. No more playing roles. Only one truth remains. Love was never outside. It has always been here, within you, waiting for you to return. And if this video made you fall silent, made something inside you shift, then that is the reminder that you have come so far. And now, you may begin again, not with someone else, but with yourself. And this time, you will not leave you.